Hello, Abigail here with the astrology of Pisces season. Yes, we have made it to the final season of the zodiacal year. We'll move into Aries season with the spring equinox on the 20th of March, but we start Pisces season first on the 18th. And the season is an interesting vibe. Firstly, because we have the nodes, the lunar nodes, in the signs of Pisces and Virgo, and there's going to be an eclipse. And so we're entering Pisces season between eclipses. We kind of did this little dance last year, but during the kind of barrier between Pisces season and Aries season. Also, never forget this shit show. We had the Venus retrograde and a Mercury retrograde. Now, this year we do have a Mercury retrograde in Pisces happening. That's going to start in the middle of all of this. So important to note. It's gonna add to the spice. We also have some really big astrology, especially at the beginning of this moment. So this Pisces season is a little extra. I will say, bright side, we are starting, and we will get this entire season covered by a beautiful Cancer Jupiter. So and also Jupiter will station direct before the end, so we will get a direct Jupiter for a few days. So there is hope. There is some good benefic energy in here in the midst of what is going to be pretty chaotic. So starting off, like I said, it starts on the 18th of February. Our first major event is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries on the 20th. This is super big. The last time we had a Saturn-Neptune conjunction was in 1989. It was in the early degrees, not as early as 0 degrees, but I think it was like 7 or 8 degrees of Capricorn in another cardinal sign. So this doesn't happen often. And in fact, the Neptune, it's been very long since we've had a Neptune Aries conjunction. So specifically in the sign of Aries. So, a lot is happening. It is going to be a really intense moment. It is going to, because both of those planets move fairly slowly, Saturn a little faster because it has a 28-year cycle and Neptune has a 100+ cycle. So we're going to have a period of days underneath this moment. So know that it's not just the 20th. We're going to be feeling this for a couple weeks. But yeah, very intense. I don't usually put super specific aspects in. I usually kind of cover the big events in these videos, but I think it's important to note, considering the chaos. On the 22nd, we do have a really beautiful Jupiter-Venus trine. And the reason this is important is because both Jupiter and Venus are exalted in their signs. And while Jupiter is still retrograde, this moment is kind of in like a breath of fresh air, especially if you're dealing with a lot of relational issues. It's going to feel better, especially when Venus and all the other personal planets were under the orb of the sun and Pluto. Not too long ago, it was a lot. Everything was under pressure. This is just kind of a nice feel good aspect, especially while we are under a very spicy Neptune Saturn conjunction. So there is this really pretty day, which I think will be nice. Also remembering that because we have this retrograde with Mercury, we will have multiple Mercury Jupiter trines as well. We've already had the first one by the time we enter Pisces season, but we'll have two more, which is quite nice. And I think we'll add kind of a juicy quality to Pisces season that might not have felt so juicy because of the kind of bareness and the aggression of that final eclipse in Virgo, which is on the Pisces Virgo axis. So, there is some really pretty astrology kind of wrapped up in some pretty testy ones. Now, the Neptune Saturn conjunction is not necessarily bad or good. I also don't really use those delineations in astrology. Everything is up for interpretation and nothing is absolutely black or white. But, it is definitely spicy. Saturn restricts things, it limits things, it kind of pulls us up short, especially when it comes to ideals and beliefs and also ideas that we might have been just running with. The planet is like, no, maybe we should reconsider, maybe we should regroup when it comes to ideology. I also think we're going to see some interesting artistic movements coming out of this moment. I'm really looking forward to maybe an alternative fashion push, kind of shake things up a little, which I'm excited for. Also, I see a rise in alt culture, which isn't surprising with Saturn and Neptune together, and just Saturn and Aries and Neptune and Aries. So, looking forward to some interesting stuff in fashion. Also, same when it comes to beauty standards, they're going to shift again, which I'm happy about, just because, you know, I think you should do what you want with your body, but, everyone's face kind of starting to look the same, not super pleasant. Um, I like super interesting, varied, facial features. I think they're attractive and beautiful. So having everyone kind of homogenized hasn't necessarily been my personal favorite trend. But like I said, if it makes you happy, you should do what you want. But I am looking forward to kind of more, a little more interest when it comes to stuff. I also think while there's going to be a continued push to try to like neutralize things and make things conform due to where we are when it comes to politics, because it has a lot to fashion and politics have a lot to do with each other. I do think this is the pushback, which I'm excited for. Anywho's, on the 25th, Mercury stations retrograde. We are entering into Pisces season already in the pre-shadow. So the shadow periods in the retrograde are basically when we hit the degree that this retrograde is going to happen within. And then the post shadow is when we get back to the first degree, and then we go back through the degrees where the retrograde happened. And so we're already in the first little bit. We'll go in the second little bit, and that station direct happens like the day before we go into Aries season. So, we will get the post Mercury retrograde into that first few weeks of the new zodiacal year, which I do think will feel a bit regressive. But by the time we're fully into Aries season, things will feel better. But then on the 2nd of March, we do have Mars entering Pisces. Mars is kind of neither here nor there. In Pisces, technically, Mars doesn't exactly thrive in the other two water signs. It is in fall in Cancer, and it is, very swimmy in Pisces. I do think it is very poetic and beautiful. I find planets in Pisces are very lush, which is nice. So while Mars doesn't have a lot of teeth in Pisces, it does have a lot of like action around beauty and art and creativity and an ability to kind of see the more fluid side of action. Instead of being single focused, Mars gets an expanded view, which is quite nice. So there's this feeling of expansion as we slowly move through these moments. And then we get the lunar eclipse in Virgo, which will be ruled by a detriment fall, retrograde, Mercury. So a lot of processing. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of themes of the past. Not a shock, considering it's going to be a long closeout, but we have started the closeout for the Virgo Pisces eclipses. The nodes shift in July, and the final eclipse, I believe, is in the beginning of 2027. So it's a pretty long burn. So, like a year from now, we get that final one. But we are starting to feel the close of that door. So definitely check out where, the Virgo Pisces axis is in your chart. I use whole sign, so it's pretty exact. Well, not pretty, it's very exact. It is a South Node eclipse. So endings, closure, lots of past life themes. If a lot of past life stuff is coming up and you say, Abigail, what's a past life theme? Repeated patterns and inability to break free from stuff, even though you're creating change, experiencing doppelgangers. So, like a repeat of an archetype in your life, an inability to kind of free yourself from certain things. That is a past life theme. If you feel stuck, it could be your past lives. I do that kind of work. It's called karmic remediation. There are other kinds of work, but if you're feeling that, this might be a good time to get a remediation. So, think on it, look it up, research it. You can check out my page if you want to. You can also check out other people's pages. I never want to trap you in the apex of my of my work. But yeah, it's going to be a lot. If you have planets around 12 degrees in the mutable sign, it's going to be extra a lot. So just, know that the eclipses are a lot. Know that we're entering Pisces season during an eclipse portal, which is a big kind of wallop of energy. I am looking forward. I am looking forward. It won't be for a minute to the time where the kind of the last season, the first season are free from eclipses. We are going to experience them next year as well. So Pisces season will be not the same, but we'll have similar stuff going on. We will have a Leo Jupiter though ruling, which will be a very, very different vibe. Anyways, back to the current time. Not too long after, Venus will move into Aries, which is where it is detriment. It is my native Venus. I have a very soft spot for it. I don't really hate detriment Venuses that much. It makes things fun. Um, are we always everyone's favorite person? No. Do we often trigger people, even unintentionally? Yes. But it is a very passionate and fiery Venus. It is also the fighter Venus. It is the Venus who will throw down. It is the Venus who will advocate for themselves and who will draw blood if necessary for love and affection and care. Also, don't know if you can hear it, but my dog is chewing on something in the background and being very noisy and snorky about it. He's also on a diet and has pulled a muscle in his leg, poor baby. So, whatever he's doing to keep himself occupied, I'm happy with. But yeah, we have this Venus Aries. It is spicy. It is resistant. If you've needed to advocate for yourself, this Venus moment will help you do that. It'll be going into Aries season, so we have it for a little bit. They're really beautiful, really lovely. Also, um, because of, where Venus is and the fact that it's kind of ahead of everybody, it'll be kind of the first planet this year to hit all the other signs, which I always find fun. You kind of get a bird's eye view of what's to come in the year through your relationships. But yeah, spicy. It's not everyone's cup of tea in Aries Venus, but it will help you advocate for yourself in relationships. It can also, because of its detriment fallen placement, subject itself to discomfort for much too long. So that's the downside, besides being a bit of a fire starter. That is the downside, is that because detriment Venuses are so used to discomfort that often, speaking from experience, we will get stuck in cycles where we suffer a lot, and do not leave. Um, I know some Aries Venuses, depending on, what house they fall in, can actually be pretty quick to pop off and fight back. But it is very unique and based on like your personality and relationship. Also very based on where your Mars is. Um, I have my Venus in the eighth. It's a difficult place. It is a place where you have to set boundaries and are often robbed of that ability in childhood. And so it is a journey to self determination. Different placement, different house placement, it can be a very different experience. That's the same for all planetary placements. But yeah, it's a fun time. I will say, very nice time to get sexy. So I'm happy that we get, usually some portion of the spring has an Aries Venus in it, but because of where Venus is falling, we get a very spicy time, and I'm excited for that. So explore sexually if you want. Then on March 7th, we have the Mercury Cazimi every time we have a retrograde because of the way that Mercury and the Sun interact. We get a Cazimi, which is an Arabic word for heart of. And so Mercury is in the heart of the Sun. And this is a nice little breather in the middle of a retrograde where you kind of get a glimpse into the lessons you've been learning, into where things are, into your path moving forward. I find that the Mercury Cazimi tends to be a turning point for a lot of folks. So yeah, a really nice moment in the midst of the retrograde. Like I said, we will have another Cazimi because Mercury moves faster than the Sun in the next couple of months. But this is our retrograde one. And I do find the retrograde one is more impactful, partially because there is such a lack of visibility, especially in this season where we are dealing with a fall detriment Mercury. It doesn't necessarily mean it's worse than others. There's just kind of like an extra pressure. And I think, personally, Mercury Pisces energy is not great for like direct communication, but some of the most beautiful art, poetry, and music comes out of a Mercury and Pisces. So just because a planet is in detriment or fall does not mean it's not positive. It just means it doesn't really function the way that that archetype and planetary energy normally does in, say, a Mercury ruled sign like Virgo or Gemini. Then we move on to March 10th, and we get a beautiful moment. I'm excited for this because it's an outer planet. It does have a longer cycle, and so we can kind of forget about Jupiter and Saturn's retrograde, but Jupiter retrograde is over. And I'm excited to kind of engage with the final phase of Jupiter in its exaltation, not retrograde. And once we get to 25 degrees, we will be out of the retrograde shadow, which won't be for a little bit. But yeah, the Jupiter retrograde has been a lot, and I could really use some like forward moving retrograde energy, not retrograde, but direct energy. Ironic considering I do have a retrograde Jupiter, which I find can sometimes make the native a little more. And the native in astrology is the person who lives with a certain chart with a certain placement. So if I'm talking about my chart, I'm the native of that chart. If I'm talking about your chart, you are the native of your chart. Um, you would think I would be more fluent with retrograde Jupiter energy. No, I am not tragically. I had one of my early mentors say that retrograde planets are an invitation to create a unique relationship with them. And I think we can all agree, or at least those who know me can agree, that I'm still working on such relationship. Then our final kind of big event, which is right on the edge, just like all of the last kind of set of moons has been. Um, we do have the new moon in Pisces, which I think will be nice. Um, like I said, we'll have a direct Jupiter. We'll be out of the eclipses officially. It is at 28 degrees, so later degrees. So check if you have any later degree mutable placements. I personally actually don't. Shocker. So this will, fingers crossed, be one of those moments where I get a breather. I doubt it will because the North Node in Pisces completely upended my life. But that's kind of how astrology works. You can kind of miss getting completely set off if you don't have placements, but if you have been through a lot with a specific transit and it has been through those degrees within like a year or two, those can also really affect you. And no, there is no winning. But I do think this is a really moment of, while the moon's not exalted or anything special in Pisces, the moon does enjoy um, the other two water signs, but not Scorpio as much. And Scorpio, once again, is the same with that detriment situation. It's not that it's fallen in Scorpio. It's not bad. It's just a moon that acts differently from the stereotype. So yeah, it feels like kind of a lovely goodbye to Pisces season. Stuff has started to stabilize. We're getting kind of our feet under us in this moment, which, considering how all of 2026 has been, needed, necessary, deeply appreciated. So I'm excited for that. I do think we're going to continue to see kind of instability. To be honest, we're not going to see a whole lot of stabilization in the energy because of Pluto's ingress and because of the ingress of Neptune and Uranus all at once in like the same 2 year period. Um, Probably not till late 2028, early 2029. And I've been talking to other astrologers, and we're kind of looking into the early 2030s for a lot of stuff. Um, I know a lot of people are like, that's depressing. And it's like, well, when you are working with time, it takes time in order to resolve things. And so, even if you are on the right track, which we aren't necessarily right now, even if we were already on the right track, it would take time to redirect. It would take time to rebuild. It would take time to disassemble and reassemble things. And so, my encouragement for you is, buckle in for the long haul. Start to dream up the world that you believe in. And use this energy and the finality of Pisces season to, close some doors so that you can open some new ones. The eclipses are also going to do that for us anyways, but you can participate in that as well. But yeah, that is my kind of overview of this season. Has sweet little moments, lots of chaos still. We are finalizing stuff, so let doors close, let things end, let people walk away if they choose to walk away. Advocate for yourself. I will say Venus in Pisces isn't the best at advocating for itself all the time. I do know several, they over time, depending on their placements, can learn a lovely sense of self, but it is not their favorite thing to have to fight for themselves, and they are often put in a position where they have to. So it is neither bad, it's not a judgment call on Pisces placements. It's not saying that, you're never gonna kind of feel ownership of yourself, but kind of like the dream-like quality of that Pisces Venus energy can cause things to be blurred. So I'm just saying, while Venus is in Pisces, recognize that you're going to see some stuff through rose-colored glasses, and put those rose-colored glasses on your dreams and desires, not necessarily on people's actions and behaviors. That's kind of my last little thing. Anyways, my dears, that is my reading for this season. Please comment if you would like. I'd love to hear from you all. You can also go check out my Instagram. Speaking of which, I am releasing some bag charms over there. This is one of them. There are 2 different types, 2 different designs, 4 different colors, 2 different purposes. This is the manifestation and creation one. They are very reasonably priced. They are $25 for the bag charm, and then $5 for shipping and handling, because I have to get my little disabled behind to the post office, and it is not always easy for me. So making that easier is why we firstly have to pay for shipping, and then also have to pay for me to get things shipped. So 30 overall. I really love these guys. About to go and consecrate these babies. I've already consecrated the protection ones which have little snowdrops on them. They are imbued with the energy of Imbolc. So yeah, if you would like to participate, they will be on sale on my story on the eclipse at 7 p.m. CST, so the 17th. And I think the day after this video is posted. Anyways, that's my little spiel. They are going to help pay for my dog's vet bill. That wasn't the original plan. They were supposed to go to rent. But any support is appreciated. Please like and subscribe if you appreciate my stuff. It is appreciated that you support in little ways. Share my stuff with your friends, book a reading, any of those things. But that being said, have a blessed Pisces season. I wishing you protection and love and care during the chaos of the eclipses, and to find those sweet little moments and the beautiful little sparks of light we have this Pisces season. And I will see you all later.